Hello, hello. This is Tuesday, right? Oh my goodness. I am going to go right over here to my Instagram live. Press go live on here. Hello, hello. This is Tuesday. There we go. And that actually looks a little weird on how that is lined up, but I'm not going to worry about that because my focus here is my Facebook pages. And perhaps I can change that a little bit. Let's just see what happens. There we go. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm Kathy Freeman. Kathy Freeman Art and Real Positive Change separates the fruit, the different layers in that, the vegetables to keep them, whatever that does for them, I don't know. But I had picked up a box and it had this in it. And I was like, wow, this might be kind of fun to play with and to try and see what happens with it. Now it is glued together. There are like 3 layers in here of it, and I didn't want to, if I started to try to separate it, but it rips the paper apart. And so I chose not to do that. But I'm going to take you first through and you can watch how I created this. And then I thought I would play a little bit more and share with you just some of the tools that I used. For example, I had purchased these woodless watercolor pencils. And I have to give them a thumbs up on that. I really enjoyed using these. It's by Curate. I got this at a Hobby Lobby. If you're out of the country, you probably don't know what that is. But if you're in the US, you know what Hobby Lobby is. And these were really fun to use. Woodless color pencils. They kind of encase them in a little bit of, I don't know, some kind of a plastic or something, so that when you hold them, it's nice to hold, but it's got a nice fine point to it. And I'm going to show you how I used these when I created this paper. So I used the woodless. I also went ahead and splurged and got myself some India ink. And this is a little bit different than the other ink that I have, but I thought that would be fun to play with. So I started out with that, and I'll show you. And then in a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and use my acrylic crayons that I have and add to it. So let me go ahead and see if I can turn this down, the screen down, so you can see. I'm going to add, excuse me for, there's 3 things here, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the video of how I created this. Hi, welcome. I see I've got quite a few here. So just say hello in the comments. Tell me where you're from. I'm Kathy Freeman Art, and I'm sharing with you today a project that I was just messing around with yesterday to give you some tips. It's on this type of paper that you can pick up in where you get your fruits and vegetables. And it's just kind of, I thought this is a neat texture, and I wanted to play with it a little bit. So let me start here, and I'm going to walk you through what I did as I did this. Okay, give me a second. There, I've got way too much going on. So here we go. If I go to this screen, okay. Takes me a minute to figure this out when you've got so many. Okay, let me walk you through this here. Wow, I'm a little bit out of practice with all of that. Tell me if you can see it. Give me a comment and let me know. Hello from Florida. Hello. Looks like I've got Hugo on here also. Welcome. All right. What I'm doing, and I'm afraid that I don't have the picture large enough, so I am going to mess for a minute. See if I can get this switched around. I'm just going to, you're not missing much at this beginning stage. I apologize. There we go. Take me off the screen. That's better. Okay, what I started out first is I wanted to try using the India inks and play with them. And so I applied them first to this paper, just straight on. And they just sort of sat there, and I squirted them on, but I thought, okay, let's try something different. So that's what's happening here, is just experimenting, putting the ink down, adding a little water to see if I can get it to move. Have any of you experimented with inks? And if you have, what's your thoughts? What's your impressions on those? And remember, this paper, it's got to be like all cotton. I'm not sure. It is the inside protective sheets that I picked up when I was getting some fruits and vegetables and that, and just thought I was going to try playing with it and see how it worked. Next, I decided, well, that didn't work the way I didn't really have any intention of it. I just wanted to experiment, but this whole project is about just relaxing and renewing. The month of January in my Art Sisters and Real Positive Change journaling group, the theme is renewal. And so, amongst the projects, I wanted to just take a few minutes and let loose with the art, not have something pre-planned in my mind. And so what I'm using here is actually water markers. Letting the water markers, just seeing how they're working on the paper. And what the paper is actually doing with them. Now the paper is getting pretty saturated, so I'm taking a second and drying it out. It's never totally dry. You have to let it dry overnight or for several hours just to get all of that dampness out, because the paper is, like I said, 3 layers that have been glued together. Let's just move you past this a little bit and get you up here, because now the fun begins. I'm starting to experiment with these woodless watercolor pencils. I have regular watercolor pencils, but I've never used these, so I wanted to experiment. And this is the attempt to put them straight on to the paper and then adding water to them. And I noticed as I was down here in this area that's damp, the color becomes more vibrant, and I can see uh, what it's doing. It just seems to adhere, puts more pigment down. I'm going back with the water now to experiment, and I'm realizing that actually the way that I prefer to do it, as you can see that blue now, once it's on the wet area, it comes across so much more pigment on the paper. Scooch over here. And so I'm only going to work with the wet areas. And if it's dry and I want to put color down, then I'll add water first. And that's what I suggest if you're going to use the woodless watercolor pencils, is put the water down first and then apply them. I went back in and I started adding some black just to add some contrast, get some dark shaded areas in here. And in my mind, as I'm just sort of creating this, as I'm working with this, I'm thinking This could translate easily into a flower garden. One thing I find as I'm working, and I'm doing something that's abstract, it's such a temptation to wanna make it into, something that is easily recognizable. Do you find that as a challenge yourself? Do you ever do any type of abstract art? Do you just let it get kinda messy? I find that my mind always wants to kinda translate it into something. I'm gonna wet this area now and I had created some little blue. I'd taken the purple and added like just little tiny flowers using dots. So I want to give you the challenge if you choose to just let loose, kind of make something messy, uh, just explore a little bit, is focus more on your shapes. Think about using lines, using circles, dots, triangles, and focus more on creating the shapes or using the shapes. I started out with the green for the stems was more of a forest green, and I've come back with a yellow green. And now I decided let's take these large areas and start adding shapes to them. And so what I'm doing is what you might consider a very loose rose. Have you ever done that before where you just start in the center and you make this wobbly little circle as you're spiraling out? That's what I'm doing here. And I'm using a pink to start with because I like the subtleness. It's not right in your face. It doesn't translate across as being bold. It just, you see this little mysterious area of shape, and your mind starts to create a story with it. Now, what started me into playing with this is I'm focusing on, I want to create a cover, the outside for my journal for January. And since the theme for January in our group is renewal, and everything that we're going to focus on is renew, then I wanted something I thought that would be fun. One of our projects is already created to go in the journal, but I thought, what this might be a fun cover. And if you want just a moment to kind of relax, this shape of making circles is very refreshing. We're going to add some contrast, bring out some highlights. That's when I pull out the white. It is still wet, so I'm using the woodless watercolor pencil. Now this shape, I'm thinking triangles. If you're thinking about the petals of a flower, and the paper is very thin. And so the more it gets saturated, the easier it is to puncture a hole in it. But I think you could do something with that in itself and add some interest to it. I moved that forward just a little bit because these flowers are lines that radiate out from the center like a spoke, like the wheels, the spokes on a wheel. I'm going to come back in with a blue green. Start creating something in the background. I'm going to take the blue now and let's start working on the sky and just loosely painting that in. The watercolors pencils were, for this space, a little bit slow, so I pulled out my watercolor palette and decided to go ahead and use that. I hope as you come on these Tuesdays to just sit in, that you bring your own project, that you paint along doing whatever you have that you're working on. This is a great time to loosen up your art, especially if you're an artist that likes a lot of detail. It's great. It's a good practice to give yourself a project here and there every once in a while. It doesn't have to be all the time, but once in a while, where it's just loose. And it's more about creating an impression than focusing directly on the details of an image. All right, I've pretty much have covered the page. And as usual, it's so relaxing and I have fun doing it. So I'm just going back and applying more color here and there. But I know that I do want to start adding detail. So we're going to take a minute and dry it. And it's not totally dry, but I mean, there's still just a little bit of dampness, but I've pulled out my Jelly Roll pen now, the white. And I'm going to focus on giving it a little more detail, creating some focal areas. Outlining now the triangle shapes on some of those flowers that I just did at the top. And going back to this color down towards the bottom. The more it dries, the easier it is to get the detailing on top with that Jelly Roll pen or white marker. All right, we're coming to a close on this. You can see that finished. Okay, I'm going to remove that, come back on here. And as you can see right here, let me put this over here, is the project. What I liked about using this is I wanted, like I said, I've been working on the cover for January's journal. I've done these in the past, but I wanted something that I could paint, and this just was really interesting to me. It's paper, but it has the feeling of fabric. So I thought that was interesting to use. Let's try for the last now. We've used watercolors. We used woodless watercolor pencils. I used ink. And now the Neocolor 2s. Pull out a few of those colors and let's finish up just playing with those. So you have an idea of what it's like and which one you prefer to use. All right, these just happen to be some new ones that I got. Colors. I'm going to go back into this area here. And actually what we need to do first, before I do that, I wet the paper, is attempt to do it. Oh, see, it works just like a crayon. It's wonderful. Goes across it perfectly. Now let's add water to that. You never know exactly how it's going to work on the paper. Make sure I'm in screen here. Add the water to it. Let's grab this color here. No perfect shapes here. Neocolor 2s are wonderful to use. Let's add a little bit of water. I'm going to go for a smaller brush. On watercolor paper, I like how they work and they blend out. But on this paper, I find they're not blending as well. Let's do a little center in those. Just make some marks. See what else. Where's another color? Goes on very cream, just like butter. And filled that out just perfectly. It does need to dry before. I'll try to put on a marker, but it might bleed. I don't know. Still wet. black to give it some contrast. Okay. All right. That's what I really wanted to just demonstrate for you today, was to be able to take some random paper. Like I said, this just came out of a box full of fruit. And you can see how the ink went right through the 3 layers. But it's so awesome. It's wonderful, this paper. It does, you can rip it quite easily, so you do need to be careful. And I'm sure that any of you go to the grocery store, you could just ask them, they're in the produce department, if you could take these little liner sheets and use them. But this, I think, would make a wonderful cover for a journal or a book. All right. Thanks for showing up here today and watching and taking some time. I'll be back here next Tuesday, same time, and share something else with you. Have a great Tuesday afternoon, y'all. Take care.